Welcome to my channel BBC Rare Coins. We dive deep into the most legendary, historical, and rarest coins ever minted in the United States. Discover their origins, why they're so valuable, and the jaw-dropping prices they've fetched at auction. Top 1. They say treasure lies where you least expect it. For some, it's buried deep beneath the ocean floor. For others, it's hidden in ancient tombs or locked away in vaults. But what if I told you one of the rarest, most valuable pieces of American history could be resting quietly in your pocket, or tucked away in an old cigar box in your grandfather's attic? This is the remarkable, almost unbelievable story of the 1944 steel wheat penny, one of the rarest coins ever minted in the United States. A single cent that could be worth as much as $58,000. To understand how something so small can be so valuable, we have to go back. Way back. To a time when the world was at war. The year is 1943. America is deep in the trenches of World War II. Every factory in the country is focused on producing materials for the war effort. Steel, rubber, aluminum, and copper, every ounce mattered. And even something as seemingly insignificant as a penny had to make a sacrifice. That year, the US Mint made a bold decision. To conserve copper for wartime manufacturing, they stopped using it in pennies altogether. Instead, they produced the famous 1943 steel cent, struck from steel and coated with zinc to prevent rusting. These coins had a pale, silvery appearance, completely different from the warm brown tones Americans were used to seeing. Over 1 billion of these steel cents were struck across the Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco mints. They were strange. They were new. But they were not rare. Then came 1944. With copper once again becoming available, the US Mint reverted to the standard copper alley planchets. The steel cent was supposed to be a one-year experiment. Done. Over. But that's where things get interesting. Somehow, whether by oversight, leftover materials, or simple human error, a small number of steel blanks remained in the minting machines. And in 1944, those steel blanks were accidentally fed into the coin presses and struck with the 1944 wheat penny design. This wasn't supposed to happen. These coins should not exist. And yet, they do. The 1944 steel wheat penny is what collectors call a mule error, a coin struck with mismatched or incorrect components. It's a numismatic anomaly, a mistake turned miracle. And its rarity cannot be overstated. Experts estimate that fewer than 30 genuine examples are known to exist worldwide, across all mint locations. That's fewer than some ancient Roman coins. Fewer than some of the most exclusive gold pieces in history. Each time one of these elusive pennies appears at auction, it sets off a frenzy. Collectors from around the globe compete for a chance to own a piece of history, and prices skyrocket. One such penny, graded and authenticated, was sold for an astonishing $58,000. And depending on the condition, others have fetched even more. Let that sink in. A 1-cent coin. Sold for the price of a luxury SUV. For the cost of an entire year of college tuition. For a coin that weighs just 2.7 grams, but it's not just about the metal or the mint. It's about the story. It's about the backdrop of global war. About the quiet chaos inside the US Mint during one of the most turbulent periods in American history. About how a single overlooked detail, just a few rogue planchets, resulted in one of the most valuable coins ever struck. Now, here's the part that makes collectors and dreamers sit up and pay attention. Most of the 1944 steel pennies have yet to be found. They're still out there. Possibly buried in old coffee cans, forgotten drawers, coin jars, or inherited collections. Some might have even passed through your hands without you ever realizing it. The easiest way to tell. A simple magnet. A real 1944 penny should not stick to a magnet. It's copper. But if you find a 1944 wheat penny that does stick, you could be holding a national treasure. Of course, it'll need to be authenticated by a professional grading service like PCGS or NGC, but even the possibility is enough to send a chill down the spine of any coin enthusiast. So next time you're sorting through spare change or flipping through an old coin album, pause when you see a wheat penny. Look closely. Check the date. And if it says 1944, grab a magnet. Who knows? You might just discover that a fortune has been hiding in plain sight. The 1944 steel wheat penny is more than a coin. It's a time capsule. A silent witness to one of the most important chapters in American history. A mistake, yes, but one that changed the world of numismatics forever, and for a lucky few, it turned a single cent into $58,000. Top 2. In your wallet, in your pocket, on top of your dresser, you've likely held one more times than you can count. The Washington Quarter. A staple of American currency, simple, familiar, and often overlooked. But buried within this sea of everyday change lies a secret. A rare, almost mythical mistake that transformed a common coin into one of the most valuable quarters ever discovered. This is the incredible story of the 1965 silver Washington quarter, a coin that defied mint policy, slipped through the cracks of history, and today commands a staggering price of up to $62,000. To understand how this happened, we have to rewind the clock to a pivotal moment in America's monetary history. The early 1960s were a time of economic change. The price of silver was rising, and the cost of producing coins with precious metals was becoming unsustainable. The U.S. Treasury and Mint faced a serious problem. People weren't spending their coins, they were hoarding them for their silver content. Until 1964, quarters were made from 90% silver. But that all changed in 1965, when the Mint officially ended silver coinage for circulating dimes and quarters. Instead, they introduced a new clad composition, copper sandwiched between layers of a nickel alloy. These new coins look similar to the old silver ones, but they weren't worth nearly as much. The change was announced. The presses were reset. The silver was retired. Or so they thought. Somehow, through error, oversight, or transition confusion, a tiny number of 1965 Washington quarters were struck not on the new copper-nickel clad planchets, but on leftover 1964 90% silver planchets. Let that sink in. In a time when silver quarters were officially dead, a few were resurrected. The 1965 silver Washington quarter wasn't supposed to exist. Yet it did, and because of that, it became one of the most prized, most talked about errors in U.S. coin history. Collectors began to whisper. Rumors circulated. Silver quarters with 1965 dates. Couldn't be real, could they? But they were. And once authenticated, they turned the numismatic world upside down. What makes this coin even more special is that visually, it looks nearly identical to a regular clad quarter. The difference lies in the weight, the metallic sound, and subtle details, just enough for a trained eye or a lucky collector to spot. And when these coins surface at auctions, the bidding wars begin. One example, verified and graded in high condition, sold for an incredible $62,000. For a quarter. 25 cents. Why? Because rarity isn't always about age. Sometimes, it's about the story. The accident. The anomaly. The whisper of a moment in history when something slipped past the machines, past the inspectors, past the rules, and into circulation. The 1965 silver quarter is one of the rarest transitional error coins ever made in the United States. And here's the kicker, there may still be more out there. In circulation. In drawers. In jars. In collections that have no idea what they're holding. If you want to test one, here's what you look for. A 1965 Washington quarter that seems a bit off. A brighter ring. A more muted sound when dropped. A different feel in your hand. And most importantly, its weight. A silver quarter from 1964 weighs about 6.25 grams, while a standard clad 1965 quarter weighs 5.67 grams. That difference is the key. Find one that matches the silver weight, and you might be looking at a small disc of metal worth tens of thousands of dollars. Coins like these aren't just mistakes. They're echoes of a turning point in American history. A time when silver gave way to modern alloys, and when even a single quarter could carry the value of a luxury car. The 1965 silver Washington quarter isn't just rare. It's a legend. A ghost of the Silver Age. And if you're lucky, one day you might find one hiding in plain sight, worth $62,000 and carrying the weight of history in your hand. Top 3. Every coin tells a story. Some tell the tale of an era, some reflect the face of leadership, and others, rare others, carry a secret. A mistake. A twist of fate. And every now and then, a coin meant for function becomes an artifact of incredible value. Today, we uncover the mysterious story of the 1974 $5 coin, a piece of American history so rare, so unexpected, that one example sold for an eye-popping $47,000. What makes this coin so special? It's not just the metal, the mint, or the design. It's how it came to be. And why it wasn't supposed to exist at all. Let's go back to the early 1970s, a decade of transition for American coinage and the US economy. In 1971, the US officially removed silver from circulating coinage, and just a few years earlier, gold coins had long disappeared from public hands, replaced by paper currency. The mint was focused on everyday use coins, the cent, the nickel, the dime, the quarter, and the newly introduced Eisenhower dollar. There was no $5 coin authorized for public circulation in 1974. It simply didn't exist, at least, not officially, but as collectors and insiders would later learn, a very small number of prototype or test strike 1974 $5 coins were secretly produced by the US Mint. These coins were likely intended for experimental purposes, perhaps part of a design study, or a test run for potential commemorative or bullion coins. Whatever the case may be, these coins were never meant to leave the walls of the mint, and yet, one did. One of these incredibly rare 1974 $5 coins surfaced years later, its design flawless, its metal content exceptional, and its existence completely undocumented in public mint records. Was it taken home by an employee? Was it misplaced? Forgotten in a vault and accidentally released? No one knows for certain, but what is certain is that the coin was real. It was authenticated by experts, verified as genuine, and deemed one of the rarest modern-era US coins ever discovered. Unlike the familiar Lincoln penny or Jefferson nickel, this coin bore a different elegance. A sharp, bold design. A polished, uncirculated surface. A piece of numismatic art that few had ever laid eyes on. It wasn't just a $5 piece, it was a relic from behind the scenes of US minting history, and when it hit the auction block, the coin world held its breath. Bidding opened high, and it only climbed from there. The final hammer price: $47,000. Let that sink in. A coin with no circulation, no widespread mintage, no public announcement, sold for the price of a luxury car. For what began as an experiment, it ended as a legend. And here's the thing, the 1974 $5 coin isn't just rare. It represents one of the most exciting kinds of coin finds in the numismatic world, the kind that was never supposed to exist. These coins don't appear in collector sets. They don't show up in banks. They don't even get mentioned in most guidebooks. Their stories live in the shadows, among collectors, dealers, and mint historians. To this day, the exact number of 1974 $5 test coins is unknown. Some experts believe only one or two exist in private hands. Others speculate more may be hidden, forgotten in long-sealed collections, or quietly passed down through families who never realized the treasure they held. That's the magic of coin collecting. It's not just about age or metal. It's about mystery, rarity, discovery. The idea that something extraordinary could be hiding in plain sight, under glass, in a folder, or in a box tucked away in an attic. So what should you look for? In the case of the 1974 $5 coin, it's more about knowledge than chance. These coins are exceedingly rare, and finding one would be the discovery of a lifetime. But awareness is the first step. Understanding that not everything the mint makes is public, and not everything the public holds is ordinary. Sometimes, a simple coin becomes a $47,000 treasure. Sometimes, a prototype becomes a masterpiece, and sometimes, history slips through the cracks and ends up in someone's hands. The 1974 $5 coin, a ghost from the mint. A mystery born of metal. And one of the most valuable pieces of modern American coinage ever known. Top 4. It's small, it's copper, and it's in your change every day. The Lincoln penny. One of the most recognized coins in American history. But not all Lincoln pennies are created equal. In fact, one very specific version of this humble coin, struck in 2008, has stunned the collecting world and sold for a jaw-dropping $55,000. This is the remarkable story of the 2008 Lincoln penny error, a rare modern-day treasure that proves valuable coins aren't always old, they're just rare in the right way. To understand the significance of this coin, we need to step back for a moment and look at where we were in 2008. America was on the edge of major change, economically, politically, and numismatically. The US Mint was preparing for a once-in-a-lifetime event in 2009, the 100th anniversary of the Lincoln Cent and the bicentennial of Abraham Lincoln's birth. Collectors knew big things were coming. The Mint was set to release 4 new reverse designs in 2009 to celebrate Lincoln's legacy. But before that moment arrived, the 2008 Lincoln penny quietly marked the end of an era. It was the last year the cent would feature the familiar reverse design, the Lincoln Memorial, first introduced in 1959. At first glance, the 2008 penny looked just like every other coin minted that year, copper-plated zinc, standard features, mass-produced by the billions. But what made this particular coin special wasn't the design. It was what went wrong somewhere in the production process. Something unusual happened. A small number of 2008 Lincoln cents were struck using a reverse die from 2009, the kind that wasn't supposed to be used until the next year. The result? A coin that blended features of 2 different minting years. A transitional error. A mix-up that should have never left the mint. This wasn't just a misprint. It was a coin struck at the intersection of 2 historic moments, an accidental crossover between the final memorial reverse and the commemorative redesigns. And that's the kind of mistake that makes collectors' hearts race, but it doesn't stop there. Other rare 2008 Lincoln cents were discovered to have been struck on planchets intended for other coins, like dimes. Imagine a penny-sized coin, but with the color, weight, or thickness of a dime. These error coins are among the most fascinating in modern US numismatics. And because they were struck during such a pivotal transitional period, they hold an even higher appeal. One of these extraordinary 2008 error pennies, verified by a top grading agency, in pristine condition, sold for a staggering $55,000 at auction. Why would someone pay that much for a 1-cent coin? Because value in the coin world isn't about denomination, it's about rarity, condition, and story. And this penny checks all 3 boxes. Let's talk rarity. The exact number of these error coins is unknown. Only a few have surfaced, and many may never be found. Because 2008 pennies were so common, most people didn't even think twice about them. These rare ones could have passed through vending machines, been dropped on sidewalks, or slipped into piggy banks, never to be seen again. Condition. That's everything in the coin world. The $55,000 specimen was flawless, gleaming, uncirculated, graded MS67 or higher, preserved from the moment it left the mint. A single fingerprint, a scratch, or a ding from another coin could have slashed its value in half. And then there's the story, a coin minted during a year of transition. A mistake that bridged 2 designs. A forgotten cent that ended up making history. What makes the 2008 Lincoln penny so exciting isn't just the money. It's the reminder that even the most ordinary objects can carry extraordinary value. That something as small as a penny can hold the weight of history, if it's struck at just the right time, in just the wrong way. So what should you look for? Start by checking your change. Look for unusual coloration, strange thickness, or odd sound when the coin hits a table. Check for design anomalies. Compare it with a known 2008 cent and 2009 bicentennial design. Weigh it. Examine the mint mark. If it feels off, it might be on the money, literally, and if you're lucky enough to find one, you could be holding a modern treasure, a penny that turned into $55,000, just because someone at the mint had a split-second lapse, and history slipped through. The 2008 Lincoln penny, not just the end of a chapter, but the beginning of one of the most exciting stories in modern American coin collecting. A reminder that even in a handful of change, there could be a fortune waiting to be found.